It's the texture, it's the wetness, it's what's the matter with this guy? Just eat it.
Hate comments are like my favorite because it just makes me laugh.
Welcome to Real Over Ideal, the podcast where we take an honest look at life, the awkward, funny, and sometimes messy facts of our day-to-day experience. Today we're going to be talking about ARFID, an eating disorder. So if this is one that you might need to sit out, please take care of yourself. You may have encountered ARFID in your own life without even knowing it. ARFID stands for Avoidant, Restrictive, Food Intake Disorder. We'll be calling it ARFID for convenience, because that is a mouthful. No pun intended. ARFID is distinctive from eating disorders that have received much more attention in the past. It's what used to be called a feeding disorder, and it isn't about dieting, body image, or wanting to fit into a certain size. ARFID is about the way the brain and body respond to food. There are three main subtypes of ARFID: avoidant, aversive, and restrictive. All of these types can be found in one individual, and that type of ARFID is called combined presentation. Whether there's a fear of vomiting, an extreme sensitivity to textures, tastes, or smells, or a general lack of interest in food and eating, ARFID is a serious illness. It is also a relatively new diagnosis. It was officially recognized in 2013. There's a real difference between ARFID and simply being selective about what you eat. That's why, for this episode, I wanted to bring in not just facts and definitions, but lived experience. My guest today is someone who has built an internet following, showing his life and talking about his experiences with ARFID openly and with a lot of humor. You may know him as ARFID Andrew. Andrew Luber is here to tell us what it's really like to live with ARFID and why sharing his story matters so much.
I feel bad for my parents. When I was a kid, my mom just simply wouldn't know really what to do, even though I did go to occupational therapy. There just wasn't any notion of creating an environment for making the kid feel comfortable enough eating. What my mom would do is just make me sit at the table and kind of try to force me to eat. But that actually ironically made it worse. It just made me like either throw up at the dinner table or have complete temper tantrums that were like uncontrollable.
Andrew's struggles with eating and food go all the way back to his infancy, when certain foods and textures were so averse that his body would physically reject food, a pattern that has persisted. Like many who live with ARFID, I'll call them patients because that's my healthcare professional love language. Andrew's childhood diet was extremely limited. His safe food list, including things like peanut butter and jelly, roast beef and cheese sandwiches, and chocolate chip cookies. Those were among the few things that he would tolerate eating. As he grew up and into college and his 20s, Andrew gradually expanded his palate, adding fish, except salmon, to his diet, though even that required careful and thoughtful exposure and repetition, which we'll get into a little bit later. Andrew debuted discussing ARFID publicly on TikTok in February of 2024, and he hasn't looked back since. He has gained attention for his raw, humorous exposure to challenging foods. One of his early TikToks featuring him trying watermelon in November 2024 went viral with over 8 million views.
I have a food phobia, and today I'm going to be trying a watermelon. What? Okay. High enemy with no chaser. This is crazy. Okay. Smell and the look and the everything. Oh, besides it. Oh. No.
This is your first time trying watermelon. I'm so proud of you. You're doing great. Oh, you got it. Breathe out of your nose. Breathe out of your nose.
I swallowed it.
You did
I
good.
have the spins. Oh my god.
Andrew doesn't just stop at TikToks. He has also shared his story during Eating Disorder Awareness Week at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, helping educate students and support the broader conversation about ARFID. He is listed among the top 15 ARFID influencers in 2025. Andrew has grown an Instagram following of over 54,000 followers and a TikTok following of over 230,000. Beyond raising awareness, Andrew is a screenwriter working on his feature film, The Hunt, which explores identity, self-definition. The story examines the tension between personal authenticity and societal assimilation, a metaphor that echoes his journey with ARFID and our journey on Real Over Ideal podcast. Andrew, thank you for agreeing to be on Real Over Ideal podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You are truly helping people far and wide by sharing your experiences. I never like to be dull if I can help it. So a good place for us to begin today is with a speed round of something I call Untangle This. And that's where I address listener questions. But for this one, I did a little bit of internet sleuthing and I found some frequently asked questions from your comment sections and other appearances. And so I've crafted a few questions for you. What do you think?
Let's hear it.
What's a question that you wish people would ask more often about ARFID?
I think a question I would want to hear is, how do I create an environment that's comfortable enough for me to eat or try something?
And what's your answer?
I don't think is a clear answer because the name of the game is getting in a position in which you feel confident enough to expose yourself to a food. And the only way to do that is by making an environment for yourself where you feel that confidence. So for me, it was through TikTok, it was through social media, and just the dynamic of being filmed and people seeing me, essentially judging me for my experience. And a lot of it is support. Having a girlfriend definitely helps with that.
Yeah.
And that is what gives me the confidence. I'm trying to expand that context a bit broader where I don't necessarily need to be filmed. Like, I do try foods outside of being filmed, but not as much as I should be. So I'm constantly thinking about ways in which I can get myself comfortable enough to try things.
It has become kind of a trend for people to share their struggles openly. You're doing it with such humor that I think it's really lovable. You're inviting people to laugh. The point is like, I want to get past it. So this is why I'm doing this
Right.
really hard thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with a lot of issues like these, it's better if you make the stakes lower in your head, and a way in doing that is by seeing comedy or in humor, or in my case, self-deprecation, which makes it less intense for me mentally because I know I'm providing humor at the same time. So there's that entertainment component that just makes it less intense overall.
How do you handle the skeptics who say people with ARFID are being dramatic or just picky eaters? What do you do about that, if anything?
It really doesn't faze me. Like, I know a lot of people that have a decent following or a big following say eventually it gets to them. To me, the hate comments are like my favorite because it just makes me laugh. Like a lot of it just makes me laugh.
What are some funny ones you could think of, if you can think of any?
Yeah, men used to go to war. Like, like that's really funny.
Okay.
I'll just get random DMs where people will just be like, "You're just a fucking bitch. You're a faggot." It's just so random that I think it's funny. Calling me names, like, completely out of context. That's good publicity. Like, any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
And especially for such a unique disorder, I think people being perplexed about it is a good thing. And
Okay.
I think,
That's a stepping
especially in
stone.
its right, because it's in the infantile phase of it being a legit disorder in terms of licensed therapists being able to treat it and understand it. Like this has been something that's only come about in the last decade. So to me, the more we can be perplexed by it, the more interest will be brought onto it, and therefore more discoveries are likely to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, I learned about ARFID, but we called it feeding disorder or sensory processing disorder. ARFID is a much catchier name, and I certainly don't think that exposure and response prevention, which is one of the really excellent treatments, had come to the fore as something that was commonly used to help people. It wasn't seen as something that was going to affect people in their who go out on dates and say, "How am I going to kiss my date? She just ate steak and that's disgusting. I don't want to be anywhere
Right,
near her."
right.
Right. We have a long way to go, I think, to help people with ARFID, in my opinion.
So I feel bad for my parents, but like my mom just simply wouldn't know really what to do. I just think like a beautiful thing about like social media is that a lot of people that are suffering from this actually are finding some solace in the fact that they can do an exposure on social media, and it does create that kind of environment for them where they're getting the confidence that they can do an exposure. So that's really the name of the game. Especially if you're an avoidant, like you're probably not eating enough. Nothing to do with body image. Has nothing to do with what you would typically think people that don't eat or avoid food have. So it's a very tricky game, if you will, in figuring out how to play it.
Your mother was really bravely trying to deal with a disorder that where she was not getting a whole lot of support for you, and it was terrifying probably because she was having trouble feeding you, which really scares parents. There's so much shame around mental health conditions, and this certainly is one. It involves anxiety and phobia and resistance to doing an activity that people who don't have a problem just take for granted. And it is just one of those places where I think the world is getting an education on how to be more decent when people are somewhat diverged from the everyday person.
Totally. I mean, I love this psychoanalyst. His name's Jacques Lacan. His thought, which is everything is a response of a symptom. Everybody has an antagonism of something that they are in response to. And I think what's interesting about ARFID is that the antagonism that is being responded to is very complex. It has to do with the actual necessity for human beings, the necessity of eating. In my own experience, I can't really explain to you what's going on. Issues revolving the necessity of eating, my mind is shutting down. Like on my videos, I definitely can't speak as eloquently as I do on the podcast because I'm literally in a fight or flight response
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. Well, that's hard to explain because you're having a physiologic reaction, the very primitive, not that you're like being a caveman, but the primitive part of our brain. It's the lower part of our brain. It's the part where you have memory and the part where you have sensory experience, and that doesn't speak English. So somebody could say to you, "Andrew, it's fine. It's just a cherry. Why don't you just eat it? It's delicious." And that won't help you. That type of reassurance is pointless, and that is a very quick thing for people with ARFID to learn. And that's what the whole kind of neural plasticity, the helping somebody to retrain their brain around that anxiety, if it's an avoidant type of anxiety. As a therapist watching your videos, it was very much fascinating to me because actually the cherry one in particular, people should go check that out because it's like you're trying the cherry and you can't stand that it's like gushy and the skin and you're like, "This is delicious. I love it." Yeah.
Yeah, well, that kind of stuff will happen where it's like I actually love what the taste is,
Mm-hmm.
but my body, I'm having these contortions, these
Yeah.
absurd looking contortions because I can't handle the texture, some component that exists outside the taste. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's inverted, and sometimes it's just even the idea of the food. That's what's so
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah.
Not saying that I'm crazy, but I'm just saying from someone that hasn't, isn't familiar with something like this, it sounds crazy.
I most definitely do not think you're crazy, but I do think, as you say on your videos, you have a phobia. And phobias don't respond to logic. Like, there are people who are afraid to get on an airplane. There are people who are
Hmm.
afraid to cross a bridge or leave their home. Treatment for ARFID is similar, but it's actually more wide ranging depending on what the problem is, because exposure is a big thing in how to handle difficult responses, how to reframe. That was just my first question. Okay, here's a fun question. The second untangle this question I have is, if someone offered you $1 million tax-free dollars to eat any of your highest enemy foods, let's say 3 bites every single day for 365 days for 1 year, is that a yes or a no? Are you shaking your head no? Wow.
It's
Okay.
it's like I could say yes, but I don't think I can actually do it. So
Okay.
I won't actually get the money because, like, if it was a banana, which is like my highest enemy food, as I
Mm-hmm.
say, it's just literally. I think I'll just pass out.
Uh,
Like I literally
yeah.
think I'll just go black and pass out.
But then what would happen?
I think I'll just pass out a lot, and then maybe one day I just don't pass out, and then like I could like put it in my mouth maybe. But
Yeah.
but just it's just my
How
my
much
my knee
money
jerk.
would
I don't
How
know.
much
It's not
money would it take?
quantifiable.
Okay, because it's interesting that you're having this response. Let's not talk about banana. Banana's very upsetting. But like, what about olives? You decided you really hate black olives. No, no
I
way.
They
Okay.
fucking
I don't
suck.
want
Oh my god.
I don't want to make you ill. Why don't I say this? That is a very interesting answer. And I think for the listeners to understand this level of pain and suffering for people with ARFID, that somebody would not take. I don't think Andrew's independently wealthy, as far as I know, that he would not take $1 million that he could use to do this horrendous thing, which is what I get into a lot with my patients when I am trying to work with them on exposures. Because if I'm going to do exposure and response prevention work with someone in a behavioral context as an OT, the first thing I have to do is get your agreement. Like, it would have to be, if you're
Right.
like, you came to me and you said, Vanessa, I'm done. I can't stand it. My girlfriend's favorite food is bananas. I live with her now. I have to get exposed to bananas because otherwise it's going to break up my relationship.
I'll just say, just some like real inside perspective. I made, like, in terms of money I made on social media, I made the most money on like banana, my pickle, watermelon, these high enemy things. I probably have 2 videos of me doing like normally when you're doing social media and you get a high amount of views that garners money for you, you kind of want to figure out a way to do it again and again and again and again. That way you're, getting more views and making more money. I don't do that because I can't do that. I have probably 2 pickle videos or 3, and I've been doing this for over a year,
Wow.
and I just won't really do it. I don't play the game because I'm not trying to. That's not why I got into making the videos in the first place. But
Well, you're vlogging, like the real experience of trying these
right.
things as a way to help yourself. But if you were in some sort of like structured treatment program, it might work that way. It wouldn't be on video, but it might work that
Hmm.
way because that's how exposure and response prevention works. You don't just immediately go to the banana or olive. You think
Right.
about it. You do imaginal exposure. You
Hmm.
work on anxiety management, and then eventually you get there. But what you're saying is the flood of anxiety that you feel is so horrendous. It's not even worth money to you to
Right.
do the horrible stuff, because people would love to watch that over and over again. They'd be like, oh, there goes
Right.
Andrew again, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then with the banana, I have a quick banana story. In college, my roommates love bananas. I made them get their own mini fridge to put the bananas in the mini fridge because I couldn't have it out near the other stuff. So like my friends were very accepting of it and accommodated me according to my needs, like in college. Just like an example of like how something like that would work. Because you brought up bananas earlier.
Yeah. And obviously, it's a sore spot. It was another one of my questions, like, how can people befriend or help their friends who have ARFID? And you just described, make accommodations that are reasonable for that person. If you live with that person and their fear food is something that can be stored elsewhere, put it somewhere else and maybe don't eat it around them. There's actually a smell to foods and things like that. So people have to
Hmm.
work it out on their own, right? Are there any other
Yeah.
quick tips that you would give in terms of social situations in adulthood that you've
Yeah,
thought of?
for sure. I mean, I always had a playful attitude, even though it wasn't actually how I felt internally about it. It's just that having more of a playful disposition um, doesn't create a tension or hostility or like I'm trying to control them. Because I think a lot of people would respond to the accommodation notion as that person just wants control and I'm not going to play that game. But if you're acting in a way in which it's more playful, you have more of a humor disposition toward it. It actually intensifies the dynamic, and you'll likely get what you want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would be my 2 cents.
I think it's really more than 2 cents. And I think that you're really saying the classic, you get more bees with honey than vinegar.
My mom would always say that. Yep.
Well, I'm probably your mother's age. So there you go. So it's probably our generation of people who say weird stuff like that. I mean, if you are kind about it, the other thing is that you gotta, in my opinion, because I mean, it's not like I've lived my life without problems. So if somebody can't understand your issue or your problem, like you can't really deal with them. That is a deal breaker. So you got to learn how to accommodate yourself and work with people to try to do the sweeter side of asking for that accommodation. And I think you also said ignore the haters. Like seriously, who needs that? That's horrible. The people who make fun. Good luck. Good luck in life. There's another part of the podcast called If You Try This, You Won't Die. I like to give people some practical tips for situations related to the topic of the show. Do you have any thoughts on how to help yourself expand what would be called your safe food list? Foods that are okay to eat all the time and pretty much are a green light. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So couple things, I guess. One is I mix it with something that I do like. So, for example, I did the other day, I had guacamole. Guacamole is an enemy for me, but chips aren't. So if I get too much guacamole and it's making me spaz out, basically, I'll like quickly shove chips down my mouth to like off balance it. Like basically what has happened with like certain foods is like curry, for example. I like rice, plain rice, but I never liked Thai curry up until like a couple months ago. And if I like mix it with enough rice, I started to actually enjoy it. And then eventually I was able to slowly diminish how much rice put in the curry to the point where I would be able to just have the curry. Figuring out combos that work, where it's a green light and a red light that work, and then you can kind of mitigate that red light slowly becoming and eventually turning into a green light.
Gradual exposure. It's so smart. I think that helping people with practical solutions is really important and that one really works. So in other words, if somebody is afraid of milk products but they love chocolate, give them chocolate syrup in just a little droplet of milk and then you add it on. That's gradual exposure. It's so smart. And it actually
Hmm.
has a motivating thing, especially if it's something that you really like to eat a lot.
Hmm.
And as long as it's not going to ruin that thing and get it off your safe food list. I guess that's the other caveat for us to think
Right, and
about.
that can happen too. That's the crazy. Like I used to love raisins. I can't.
Mm.
It's definitely don't like raisins now. Like I can't even go near a raisin
What
like that.
happened to
Yeah.
raisins? What
I
happened?
honestly don't know. I don't know. When I was a teenager, I would eat them, and then this is what I mean. You kind of don't remember. I don't know. It's just like I don't eat them now. I can't stand them.
Yeah, your
Right.
subconscious remembers something that went
Right.
very wrong for you. Something must have gone down with a raisin that your
Something must
body
have
remembers.
happened.
Yeah, wow.
Things don't
Okay.
happen without a reason. I like to
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
So yeah.
So I just want to offer a couple of solutions that I think are really helpful in terms of nervous system stuff.
I would love to hear some of your solutions. I just ruminate in my own thoughts all the time with it. So any insight from a pro, why not?
My suspicion, doing some observation, obviously you are not my patient. I can see this nervous system response. You're gagging or getting ready to vomit and vomiting sometimes. You just have this horrible feeling. It's before your consciousness. I mean, you're awake, but it's before your ability to talk yourself down. When you're doing these exposures, at least the ones that are online, there might be some ways to prepare yourself. Number one, if you're going to try something and it's making you nauseous, isopropyl alcohol on a cotton swab,
Mm-hmm.
just pour a little bit on there, inhale the alcohol for a moment. That brings down nausea. Like, do a little swab beforehand and then during. You can pick up the swab, especially when there's a
Mm.
odor or a fragrance or something. Have you ever tried anything like that with?
No, that's a fantastic idea. Seriously. Yeah.
This is also a great anxiety one. So even if you're anxious right before you do an exposure, this will just bring the anxiety down. And for the listeners, this is not alcohol like Jack Daniels. This is like isopropyl alcohol you use, right? It's nobody's drinking it. This is just 70% isopropyl alcohol that you would put on a cut. I just don't want to get anybody confused. We're not drinking it. We're putting it on a cotton ball and kind of inhaling it. Okay. And that really helps with nausea. And I hope you'll try that today. Number two, in terms of preparing for an exposure, I would try ice packs. Put an ice pack on your face. Sit with an ice pack on your back. Bring body temperature down. Coldness causes the diving reflex, and the diving reflex is
Mm.
your heart rate slows down. You're cooling yourself down enough to get your nervous system to know that it's safe. So if you do that before you're about to eat a fear food or try a fear food, you're starting out at a lower level of nervous system arousal.
Ve- Yeah, that's a very interesting idea. I think I might honestly do that where I just have like ice packs on me
Yeah. Yeah.
and I try food. I think that makes so much sense because
Yeah.
I do get hot, come to think about it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you do because it's the
Huh.
opposite of being relaxed. And here's another one. If you have a terrible exposure, fill a bowl with ice and water, stick your face in the bowl for 10 seconds, and then come
Okay.
out and do that again. You could also try that before an exposure. I would love it if you would do these on your TikTok and show them to
Oh,
people because
I
I,
definitely am.
yeah,
Like
cool.
that's the
Because,
first thing that came to my mind
yeah,
is
I'd love it.
like, yeah.
This one you may not want to do, depending on how you feel about salt, literal
Hmm.
salt. But it is my understanding from the research that I've done that if you put some salt on the very tip of your tongue, it reduces nausea and gagging. It lowers the nerve response down. So you
Mm.
might try that if you could tolerate putting the salt on your tongue. Now, if you have a phobia about that, then you don't have to
Hmm.
do that one. And actually, to the listeners, of course, any of these that I suggest, it's like, as I say, if you try this, you won't die. It's not a tattoo. It's something you're going to try. You could try it or not try it. You don't have to, commit your entire life to it. So that's the salt one. That's another one for dealing with that automatic nausea and gagging that you get. Have you heard of the Naguan or P6 pressure point? That's a
No.
nausea point, an acupressure point. You flatten your palm. You place the first three fingers on the inside of your wrist, and then you take your thumb right below where your three fingers were between the two
Hmm.
big tendons. And you
Hmm.
rub right there deeply for 2 to 3 minutes. This is another thing you could try before an exposure for you. Diminishes or reduces or even eliminates nausea. They have these
Mm.
things called C bands. You can buy them in any airport. You could probably get it at your local drugstore. They have these little dot things on a elastic around your wrist. You can put them on and you could wear them
Okay.
during an exposure. So that's another one for your gagging. The gagging seemed to be really extremely uncomfortable. So that's what I really
It
responded
sucks.
to. And it is so obvious that it is not put on in the slightest. It is a kind of automatic response. There's nothing you can do. So I would like to ask you, do you have any parting words for the audience? Like you'd like to say anything to people who are curious about ARFID, have ARFID, think they might have ARFID?
Um, I would say in general that if you have it, if you think you have it, you're not alone. And it seems like more and more people are coming to the realization that they have it and that, in fact, it's probably on a spectrum. With children, be patient. Be patient. It's very hard. I know that it's probably a lot easier said than done. But like I did not eat a lot of food. I turned out fine. Fine meaning like I'm still working on it. My head is leveled when it comes to it. Because that's at the end of the day, all you can really ask for is that you can have some kind of control over the situation and not feel like it's completely out of control. So I think that would be my final.
Okay, I think that's great. And I would add on to what you're saying, because you mentioned this earlier, that for people with young children in the house with ARFID, you can't force someone to do what is a task that they do voluntarily. And so the more pressure you put on that child, the worse it's going to get. And actually creating a relaxed environment, maybe trying some of the tips even that we talked about today, the cold pack, the isopropyl alcohol, anything like that, that can sort of nervous system hack might also really help. But I think where Andrew's coming from as well is, come from a place of understanding and confidence that, you know what, kids can grow up eating peanut butter and jelly and roast beef sandwiches and maybe some goldfish crackers, which seems to be very popular with people with
Mhm.
ARFID, and they still work it out. And they may still be working on it in their but they will be motivated and not hating every minute of it instead of feeling like it's a horrendous situation to constantly be confronted with food. And I think that's where you're at.
Totally. And I'll just say people with ARFID tend to like uniformity. That's why like McDonald's, these fast food chains, most people with ARFID do like that because no matter where they are in the world, they go to McDonald's, you're going to get the same cheeseburger. You're going to get the same thing. So I think there's a lot of things like peanut butter and jelly. It can't be that diverse with peanut butter and jelly, It's
Mhm.
bread, peanut butter, jelly. So I just think finding things that have that uniformity are a lot easier, and those are a lot easier to like have. And I think it's okay to grow up having a couple of these things that fall under that kind of category, and you'll
Mhm.
survive. I think within reason.
We have an obsession in our society with like healthy eating. I mean, I think it's great. Healthy eating is great. I have nothing against it. But if you have a child who will only eat chicken nuggets and French fries and saltine crackers, and that is keeping enough weight on them, and they drink water, that's what they're eating right now. And you forcing them to eat other things is not going to be the way to go. That's the kind of kid who hopefully is going to get some expert therapy because the parents can't be the
Mm.
therapists. Andrew, you have given us such an honest window into your journey. I really appreciate that you've joined me today and shared your story, your obvious humor, and your honesty about living with ARFID and working with it. It's not an easy topic to talk about or to deal with, but you've made it real, approachable, and even fun. So that's exactly what Real Over Ideal is all about. So I really, really appreciate the time you spent today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Pleasure.